and welcome to the M Word. My name is Lavinia and I'm founder and director of the M Word and Emotional Problem Solving Limited. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by friends. They've become friends. They have been clients, but they've definitely become friends. And they've very, very kindly agreed to join me today to talk about some of the challenges they have faced in their journeys. Some very similar journeys, but others obviously very different. And I'm going to let them do most of the talking because I too can talk a hind leg off a donkey, and that's not my aim today. Can I introduce, first of all, Louise? Unfortunately, Mike is not able to join us. Then we've got Neil and Ali, and we've got Katie and Steve, and they're in different counties from one another. But obviously, I'm not going to do all the talking, so feel free. Who would like to start first to talk about some of the issues that we've had?
But how long did it take you? I know how long it took me, but how long did it take you guys to have the confidence of your convictions to tell everyone else to do one? That, you know what I mean? So there's a point on that journey where you realise that it's them that have got it's them that have got it wrong.
My point was, we're in year 6. Seb started self-harming, so he bangs his head, and he'll smack his head on his bed, and it's horrible to watch when he's really, really, really anxious. And we were explaining to the team leader of SBAS, the Behaviour and Attendance Service that I love. The girls were really lovely that worked there, by the way. But the team leader in a meeting sat there and she went, "You need to remove all of the sharp objects in your house to prevent him from hurting himself and get him to school." And I was so gobsmacked. I sat there and I nearly laughed out loud. I nearly turned around and just physically laughed out loud. And I thought, you actually have no idea. What are you even doing in this meeting? I mean, how much damage she has done to families by saying things like that is just unbelievable.
I think for me, I had to find that fire in my belly, because conflict doesn't come naturally to me. And I used to sit in meetings and I used to listen and take on board everything everybody else was saying, and I wouldn't not argue the toss, but I didn't know myself, so I trusted that they knew what they know, and that they had our best interests at heart. And actually, it was working with Lavinia and Sarah when Ellis was in year 7, and Sarah said to me, "You need to find that fire in your belly, and you need to not be worried about what other people think." And it took time, and I'd say I'm still getting there, but I'm way better now. Than I can pick people up in meetings now when they're incorrect, but it took a while.
Yeah.
How long did it take you?
Well, it took me. I mean, it took me years.
Much longer than me.
Years, and it was interesting. There was a bit of an epiphany, which was I like logic and rational thinking.
Charlie tells everyone that his dad's autistic all the time.
We might be seeing the genealogy.
I didn't like to say that.
Here, right? We might be seeing the genealogy.
Have you met my dad? He's really autistic. Is he, Charlie? Really?
So the kind of epiphany was, you know, I was continually butting heads with Charlie because I couldn't understand the logic and rationale that he had in his head. And I was continually butting heads with him to say, well, no, it's not like that. Or why don't you go to school? Because it can't be that difficult.
Sorry.
It's all right. And it was at the point at which it suddenly twigged in my head, which was, I need to put myself in his head, not bring him into my head. And it was at that point that I went, oh, Jesus, right, that's the problem. So the reason why everyone else doesn't understand is because they want Charlie in their head. Sorry, they want to put them in Charlie's head. And it was at that point I was like, so they just don't get it. They just I didn't get it because I didn't understand until that moment where I kind of readjusted my thinking. And then I thought, well, they don't get it for exactly the same reason. again, trying to be logical about the solution. But yeah, and that took me,
It was a long time.
years. I'd say it's probably only in the last 3 or 4 years that I've really twigged that.
I mean, we've got friends with autistic children, and I would definitely go as far as to say, as even though I have my own autistic children, I certainly don't understand their
No.
autistic children. It is literally my own, and I'm still learning every single day. So yeah, to be fair to schools, and yeah, it's not a one size fits all. It can't
No.
ever.
That's why it's called a spectrum.
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
And you
And-
all have children who are PDA, and PDA isn't recognised as yet by the NICE guidelines. So for a lot of professionals, PDA doesn't exist. It's naughty, defiant, lazy behaviour. And within CAMS, of course, I couldn't talk about PDA in a way that would be accepted by my colleagues who were screening formally diagnosis, because of course they were like, no, it doesn't exist. But when I was talking with my families, it would be like, I need you to think about PDA. You need to go and look it up. When I set up the M word, suddenly I was my own person. I could say, do you know what, we're going to screen for PDA. But you all have PDA with your children. And what is really interesting is that they all shared a very simple logic that schools cannot get their heads around. And it is simply this. School starts 9:15. PDAs are renowned for being night owls, not early birds. Give them a license to wake up naturally with their body rhythm, and suddenly the sun comes out frequently. And that was so pivotal with Alice.
And now I will. We don't schedule anything before 11 o'clock. Every single, apart from football, because obviously he will get up for that. No, there's absolutely. I will never ever allow him, even if he begged me to go to school at 8:45 every morning. I actually wouldn't let him, because that has been crucial to his day. And other children and other parents like, oh my God, he can go in late and he can do what he wants, and da 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 da. In fact, he's, some of his friends will say that they say, oh, I'm Ellis, I can do what I want, because that's how it appears. But actually it isn't. It's a need, and meeting that need has been transformative for him.
And another favourite one is about sleep hygiene. So again, children should not be allowed to go to parents' beds for sanctuary, for feeling safe. They should be left stranded, feeling terribly anxious and worrying about school the next day and unable to sleep, and then wonder why they are dog-tired the next morning and are unable and unfit to go to school. But I digress. Neil, carry on.
Well, I was going to say, one of the realizations for me, and going back to what you were saying earlier about the sort of the epiphany, was when we went to the specialist school, which was fantastic. What a setup. And I was so disappointed that it didn't actually happen. But in one of the initial meetings, we met with the deputy head, and he said, yeah, it's a bit different here. He said, if it's raining, 70% of the school don't turn up.
Windy. That was
windy. Wind or rain. He said, they just don't come in.
Just don't turn up.
And I sat there and I went, really? He goes, yeah. He said, they'll just drift in later in the day when the weather's improved, and we just carry on. And that's when it hit me. That's when it hit me that this is what it is. You can't.
Okay.
You can't put everyone in a box and expect them to operate. It just doesn't work. And we walked around the school, and we went into another room, and there was a lady there with 2 dogs. And there was these 2 dogs that just had and she said, the dogs just go where they want during the course of the day, and the kids will just take them for a walk around the thing. And I'm thinking to myself, this is what it's about. This is them understanding what the need of the individual is, rather than them trying to fit the individual into a need of a school.
Yeah.
That for me was my epiphany, I think, with it all. And suddenly you start to sit there and you think, well, actually, yeah, that we could work that. That'll be right. And yeah, the whole thing of nighttime and sleeping, or Ali was just going to say we didn't sleep in the same bed for
about a year. I
for
think
a
it
year
is.
because one or the other of us was in with Seb trying to just comfort and try and
Put
get
a
to
swing
bed.
up in his room.
Oh yeah, I've fitted
Weighted blankets.
weighted blankets. We've had swings. I mean, anything that we've seen as an
Anything,
additional aid to get him to
anything. We
sleep.
tried
We've
everything.
tried, you know.
And in the end, I just went,
No,
have an iPad. I'm going to my bed.
yeah.
Going back,
You're asleep. You're asleep.
going back to tag teaming, actually, it's quite funny that Ellis will sometimes have trouble going to bed on his own, obviously, and so I'll lay with him for a bit. And actually, I don't know why, but I seem to keep him awake. And if it gets too late, I have to call in Mike to take over. And I don't know whether it's Mike's smell or his just personality, but Ellis is asleep within about 30 seconds with Mike. It's really
How
weird.
annoying.
Really weird. But again, that's just a tag team example where it works.
That is
Yeah,
the other
we
thing,
used
isn't
to
it?
do that, didn't we?
Yeah.
I'd start, and then Steve would come home from
Yeah.
work, and then he'd come in and take over, and then it
And
was
end up reading Harry Potter, trying to do all of the voices until the book falls on my nose as I start to fall
Yeah,
asleep
see,
before Charlie did.
Charlie preferred you read. Charlie always used to say to me, "I don't like you reading Harry Potter because you don't do the voices." I said, "Yeah, that's because I think Harry Potter's a load of old rubbish, and I don't want to read the book. If you're being honest with me, I'm being honest with you."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, get Dad then, because Dad does all the voices." And I was like, "All right, that's fine." It gives me half hour off.
Yeah.
I remember we once tried mindfulness, didn't we? And
Yeah.
I said, Dad will come in and try it as well. Dad needs a bit of mindfulness. So we had this like meditation tape thing going on. And all I could hear was,
Yeah.
I was well mindful that
it
night.
works for Dad then.
I think you just, and that is the uniqueness of the situation we're in, and that which makes it special. I mean, we tried reading books, and we latched onto reading books, audio books.
Yeah.
I loved Michael Morpurgo on the audio book, and I'm laying there and I'm captivated. I'm waiting for the next chapter. And so I look at Seb and he's just sort of staring blindly around the room. So my dad's all right, he's listening to it, it's fine, you know. And I go to him the next day, should we have the book? No, you can listen to yourself upstairs if you want. I'm like, okay, yeah. So that you just I think at the point where you're at a low, you're prepared, you become prepared to try anything to try and make it better. And in some of that, you need to sometimes review and actually look back, because like you say, doing voices for Harry Potter, you'll do anything to make life better, make them relax, to make them sleep. And then you're trying all these things to try and fit into a system, and you think, you just sit there some nights and you think, what the chuff am I doing? Because who's the one that's going mad? Because Seb will be sat there, he's like, whatever. Yeah,
He's perfectly happy.
He's absolutely fine. And like Ali said, we just had that thing one night. We said, you know what? Why don't you just watch your iPad? And he went, yeah, all right then. But I think we went back down a couple of hours later. He's fast asleep. We've gone a year and a half of not sleeping in the same bed trying to make it work. That's the specialness of these children, and what they bring to our worlds is they see it so literal. Certainly with Seb, he sees it so literal. He sees it in such a unique way that when you actually tune in, it is a great place. And I know it's not easy. I know I'm not dissing any of the journey that we've had or any other person's journey, because they'll all be desperate to try and tune in and find that place. But you know, when you do find it, it is special, and you just you want everyone to have that same experience. And it's so difficult to explain it to other people when they don't understand.
He's got the most beautiful soul ever.
Yeah,
and you can't box it.
No,
it's just lovely.
And you can't, and that's the bit that I worry about it from an educational point of view. I worry about it from the way that they're viewed in the world. People aren't allowed enough time to tune in to the environment of these. I hate SEN, children, special needs. It's all the terms. I have a real issue with the terms that are used around it, because they are brilliant. They're just brilliant, and everyone could just stop, tune in, listen, and not react, which is difficult as a parent, I, at the very beginning, was the one that would react. I'd get cross. I'd be the one, right, you got to go to bed, you know, you got to go to school. And physically manhandling Seb into the car, did all of those things. And I'm not proud of it. I got to a point where it broke me.
Yeah. Because he lost trust in us.
And he turned around. He
Yeah.
said to us, he went, do you know what? I don't trust you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's awful to think.
Yeah.
And that was one of the pivotal
pivotal
points
moment
for us. We thought, actually, if he can't trust us,
Yeah, then who?
Who can he trust? But that was because we were under such pressure to physically
Yeah.
put him to school, because we were going to get prosecuted for him not being there.
But once you get through that.
But once you go, actually, take me to court.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this to my child.
Yeah.
And you get someone like Lavinia that goes, do you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I mean, yeah, the trust thing, I think I mean, Ellis obviously lost trust in us when we were forcing him to go to school in year 7 initially, but we then had to spend a long time building that trust up again. And it happened much more quickly with Ellis and I, because obviously I was with him every day and I was able to build it up with him quite quickly. And it's actually, I was talking to our middle son today about it, because today, the very first time that Ellis has been away for the night with Mike. They've gone up to watch Manchester United, and before now, Ellis would never have trusted. Didn't not trust Mike. I think he didn't trust him to advocate for him.
It's a different relationship.
Yeah.
And I feel like tonight's a major win, because it has taken us a year, really, because we worked quite hard on the trust then between Ellis and Mike. And trust is the wrong word, isn't it? I don't know what the right word is, because obviously trust him as his dad, but I think it is trusting him to advocate for him and trusting that he understands what he needs. And yeah, I think, I mean, 2 things I've noticed today. One thing is I haven't laughed all day because Ellis isn't here, so that's really evident. He just makes me laugh so much. And secondly, that I'm really going to take it as a win that he managed to go. And don't get me wrong, he had a huge meltdown last night, and he was, you know, crying and panicking that he didn't know if he was going to be able to do it. And actually he did revert to scrolling on TikTok at 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night, to calm himself down, which actually, again, I took as a win, because that was his idea to do that, and he did fall asleep. So yeah, that trust thing is massive.
Trust is a big thing, and I find it really interesting. And again, all your children have done exactly the same. They've entertained me at the beginning of their journey very briefly, and they've tolerated parents working with me and have grown to trust that it's okay not to fully participate. And one of the things that I will not do is force young clients to work with me, because they've been at the brunt so much for so long by a variety of professionals saying, you will do this, otherwise X, Y, Z will happen. Whether it's them getting detention, whether it's they're going to get into trouble, whether it's the parents going to get into trouble, or their parents are going to get fined. I will not be a party to that. And what I found in the process is that actually the children slowly but surely over time come to trust when the parents are talking about, oh, Lavinia was talking about this, Lavinia was talking about this, Lavinia's recommended this, you know, this is okay, we can do this. And from each of you, I have had so many different phone calls or so many different conversations about, okay, what now? What do we do? And it's like, it's really okay to just let you do the work. And what I find incredible is that all our children have made phenomenal progress. Now, to the outside world, might not seem phenomenal, but I remember talking with you, Katie, about we need to get Charlie starting to think about learning. Just because he's been shafted by not addressing his mental health and supporting it, just because he's been shafted by not understanding his needs in the classroom, does not mean he's not entitled to an education. He is, but we need to dress it up in a very different way. And I do believe that part of the success, I mean, nobody could have ever anticipated what was going to happen into Charlie's life 18 months ago. But I remember thinking and having the conversation with you about, if you hadn't trusted me to do the work with Charlie and getting him to think, get his head around doing 1 hour a day, whether you split it up into 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there, whether it was watching Jeremy Clarkson and Top Gear, anything that was of interest, he would never have been able to kind of really get his head around about, okay, I can be swayed to do education at St. Thomas's. But equally with Ellis, I've seen Ellis kind of peer around the camera really shyly. All right,
Yeah.
But he knows that we fought, and most importantly, you as parents have fought with
But I
me
think-
kind of saying, you're supported, you do it, I will back you up 100%.
But I think
And-
it's more obvious with Sophie because she has seen so many professionals. I couldn't even begin to tell you the number over the course of the last 23, 24 years.
Yeah.
And you were just another one to her, just another one that wasn't going to understand, wasn't going to help her, wasn't going to get it, wasn't going to make any improvements. And it was actually only when she saw in Ellis the changes and that she actually then started to trust and started to think, oh, actually, maybe I'll be included in that. And I mean, obviously the changes in her have been phenomenal as well. And it just comes down to that trust in that person.
Charlie was the same. He'd been so let down by so many adults, us included. Like you said, we follow what people advise us, and then we now know that it's totally wrong advice. But you know, he'd been let down by everybody. You're right, I don't know if trust is the right word, but he had no faith in any adult anymore. And when I said to him about found Lavinia, we want to give her a go, he kind of rolled his eyes at me and he was like, oh, yeah, whatever. But he will quite openly say, like, we're regular visitors at the hospital now, and he will quite openly say, listen, if this had happened to me 2 years ago, it would be a different story. You would have had to have sedated me. You would have had to chain me to the chair. He said, there's absolutely no way I would have done any of this. And what I find phenomenal about the whole thing for us, and it probably might be similar for you, is that, like you say, Lavinia, you haven't had a huge amount of one-to-one interaction with Charlie. It's all been done almost third party, kind of like through me, and then obviously through us. And that, when I tell people, they just go, what do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, no, I can't explain it. I cannot tell you what's happened, what's changed, but it works. And that is the biggest thing for me, that, you know, poor Charlie's had quite a traumatic past few years. But like you say, he laughs, he jokes, he comes downstairs, sticks his middle finger up at me and says he loves me. You know, it's all these kind of things that Charlie wasn't there a few years ago.
No,
because he was broken by a system that just doesn't work for him.
And just doesn't understand. And you know, for whatever reason, curriculum's very tough, Ofsted's very tough, you know, there's lots of reasons. But he is now, you know, what he's been through, especially the last 18 months, has just been incredible. And he's managed it, and he's, you know, I say to him, I've got an appointment with Lavinia today, and sometimes he still rolls his eyes, but I think at the beginning it was like, she's going to try and get me to school. And when he realized it wasn't about going back to school, it was about understanding and giving him the freedom and, you know, the faith in somebody. I think that was the biggest thing. And like I say, the fact that it's been done kind of from a distance is just incredible. I've done it, and I don't even know how it's done. You know, it's
agree with that.
Very, it's a very,
it's black magic.
Yeah, it is. She's
and you were doubting Thomas, weren't you, Steve? Confess all now, because I know what Katie told me. Pile of poo, that woman. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I think your words were a bit extreme when we watched her video on holiday. Do you remember? She was talking about anxiety and everything.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a bit extreme, he said.
The thing for me, you know, what we've learned, what Lavinia's helped certainly me to learn, is that part of the answer to this is telling Charlie that he's got control.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not us enforcing something upon him. It's saying, right, Charlie, you're in control. What do you want to do? How do you want to do it? Removing the expectation that we're just going to, or we are going to impose a direction, and say, well, okay, up to you. If you don't want to do anything today, that's fine. If you do want to do something today, that's also fine. But just let us know.
I think,
that was a big learning for me from the conversations with Lavinia.
yeah, I think the other thing that we, as exactly on that same line, Steve, is that we learn, and we touched on this with Lavinia recently, is that we're always seeking something to do to try and better the situation. Naturally, as parents, you just want those things. So, you know, for argument's sake, end of last summer, we wanted to go to, as a family, to one of the boys' graduations, and it was important that Seb came with it, and he came to the graduation. We then went out for a meal, and all great. The amount of effort that took was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
In previous conversations with Lavinia, we'd had conversations about recognizing getting him to do something is one thing, great, but actually recognizing that there's a period of decline, and there's a need for him to come back down to earth and regulate and do all those things. So we'll have one day out, but it might take 3 days to get over it. That's not an issue. It's not a drama. It's not a problem. It doesn't need to be. And we've learned that. We know that if we put something in that is going to challenge his situation, we almost need to allow a few days for it to unravel and deal with it. And he might lock himself away, back himself out of any situation. But you know what? That's okay. That's fine, because we achieved the goal. We went to the graduation. We had a lovely day out. He thoroughly enjoyed it. And then he needed his time. And then we don't mind that. We don't mind that time is there and it's needed. And it's as much of an aid in getting him into what we would like to do and understand things that we would like him to do, but us understanding that he needs time to get over it.
But that's where the team comes in again, because we'll do the same. We might have something, to us that's major that we need him to do. But then if you do require 2 or 3 days in, normally it would require one of us to be in for those 2 or 3 days as well, because he's too anxious to stay at home on his own. So then again, that's the tag teams. Like, okay, well, who is going to go and get the milk that we've run out of? Who's going to go and take the dog for the walk? Can we escape for a half an hour cup of tea down the cafe? That's where the tag teaming comes in again. And like Mike often says, who cares for the carer? Because whoever's in is really the carer, aren't they? And whoever's zipping around in the car doing all the other jobs has kind of got a bit of a break, really.
I mean, one of the things I experienced in the journey with Ollie was, and it's stayed with us now, and we do check in with one another how we're feeling. But in all of the process when we went through it with Ollie, one of the dads it was a couple of months in to when we were going through leukemia and everything else, and he just pulled me aside one night and he went, "You all right?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he said, "No. Are you all right?" Someone took that time with me and asked that question, and what was quite a difficult time. And so when the world is sort of imploding and everything's going wrong, it is important that there is someone out there just goes, no. Are you okay?
For you, yeah.
Yeah, because the carer is absolutely, who is caring for the carer is absolutely right. And and that's why, going back to what we said right at the beginning, anyone that's doing this on their own, you've got to find someone to be part of your tag team. They don't have to be have to life. They can just be someone and have someone who's just got your back.
And the other thing, and Katie's educated me massively on this, which is if the answer is no, I'm not all right, don't try to necessarily fix it.
Listen.
just don't try to solve it.
I find that really hard.
Don't try to solve it. Don't come up with all of these solutions. Well, do you want, do you want this, or shall I do that, or blah blah blah. Just shut up and listen to them, let them vent.
One of the things that I was very keen to do when I first set up the M Word was, within CAMS and indeed any sort of NHS thing, you're very much guided by this is what we do. And it's very much about filling in, ticking the boxes. It's very much about, you know, have you done a care plan within 48 hours, even if it's the most basic one? Have you done a risk assessment within 24 hours and loaded that up? Have you considered what is the problem and how are you going to resolve it? And then have you got a guideline of roughly how long you expect it's going to take? There is no time for the parents. They don't even have parent support groups to kind of say, look, you need time. And there are so many families waiting in the queue. So again, when I was thinking about the M Word, and I need you to consider this, is who had your back when everything was going south? Because when you all came with me, you were all pretty broken, pretty miserable, pretty fed up, and just feeling that nobody understood. And the beauty of working with all of you is we are all able to celebrate in your success stories, but your children trust you to work with me. And at some point, you know, with all of you, I will be no longer needed. And I've managed to get you back as a family where you are the experts. And one of the things that I know, particularly with you, Louise, is you have learned how to be, I'm not having this. This is my viewpoint. These are my observations. I know Ellis better than anybody, and I know where he needs. Whereas when I first met you, you would have been like, well, what do we do? It was always a question, always, yes, but, what do I do? And I think the power of a professional has to be about, what can I contribute to support you? And yet what professionals do to you is break you. They absolutely break you. And if you're feeling broken, how on earth can you support your children who are definitely feeling annihilated and misunderstood? What do you think?
Well,
I
think
think we always struggle to get professionals to listen to parents. I can't foresee a time when we're going to ever not need you in meetings, because after school then there's whatever happens next, but then you know, it's a new set of professionals who aren't going to take you seriously and think that you know what you're talking about. And I'm sure the day will come, like you say, but at the moment I can't foresee a time where professionals are going to listen to parents.
No, the world's not changing anywhere near.
No.
And fortunately for us, we are part of a community. We are, via Lavinia, share and understand our situations better, because it's great. There needs to be more of that. There needs to be more sociability around the problem. I actually went into a chat group which Ali encouraged me to do, that was for dads with dealing with autism and PDA.
It's a PDA
through the PDA Society, and I have to say I was really sceptical. I really was.
I don't want to do it.
Shrug my shoulders.
Can't believe you nominated me for this course.
I think it was something like 4 hours. I was sat on the computer, and I found I had stuff to offer, because there was one guy that was a long distance lorry driver, so was away from home quite a lot. He came back, and the whole trying to keep up with where his child was at the point, and understand where his wife was at with the point, and then also trying to explain to his family where. So we did chat quite a bit, and that was really good. And I think that's the thing. I think you're right. There's like a dark magic around the M Word, Lavinia. It's amazing how it works. And I'll be brutally honest, we sit there some weeks ago, right, what we're going to talk about, what's going to happen with Lavinia? We don't know. There's no preset agenda. Lavinia manages to appear and just sets a whole system of conversation going, and you get to the end of your session and you think, well, what happened there? Because it, and you every time, Lavinia, I have to say, you summarize where we are beautifully, and you always manage to bring it all round, which is amazing. And that's probably where it works for all of us. That's what I'm hearing tonight, is having that ability to sort of understand, nurture us as parents, because I think that's what's going on. We're being nurtured to understand and be sympathetic to.
So challenged sometimes.
Yeah,
but
and
sometimes
challenges
things. And,
yeah, and you do challenge. And we've seen that with slamming doors and all of that from Seb, where he's walked off in sheer huff. But it's a brilliant situation, I think, and that's where we are. We're so lucky as parents with the group tonight talking about it. There's just so much. It's great. Can't say enough about it, really.
So the magic, though, is quite an interesting one, isn't it? Because, you know, over time, when I have parents or indeed young clients work with me, there's always this feeling of, I'm so grateful, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And actually, there is a very necessary ingredients, and people are very dismissive of my magic, my black magic. I must coin that phrase, obviously. But the magic is about that willingness to put your faith in me that I've got your back. Katie, oh my goodness, do you remember that conversation? You said, I am literally terrified. If I push Charlie, I can't, this is, it was horrendous. And I was like, I wouldn't do this if I didn't know, you know, we've got this between us.
Yeah, and I think that was the one thing we've dealt with many professionals over the years, as everybody has, and I think one situation really sticks in my mind, because it kind of explained everything that happened there is what Lavinia doesn't do. So we had this meeting and they weren't listening to us, and then a couple of days later, like the focus was getting Charlie back at school. They weren't understanding the background of it and how actually traumatic it was for all of us, not just Charlie, for all of us as a family. And he didn't really listen. And then the next day he phoned me, and I didn't even recognize his voice on the phone. He was like, I'm really upset with what you told me. I realized this runs deeper than him just not being at school. And I was like, we've literally been seeing you for 6 months, and you finally decided to listen. Whereas I think with Lavinia, it was immediate. I remember the first phone call I had after we'd watched your video, the first phone call I had, and I'd made notes, and you were talking about trains, and you were talking about this and all this sort of thing. And I came away and I suddenly thought, bloody hell, somebody gets it.
Yeah.
Firstly, somebody's listened enough to actually be able to understand what we're going through. They've listened enough to get it. They've listened enough to say, actually, do you know what? We can work through this. We can work together, and we can get ourselves through this. And I think that's kind of one of the main things, is that, yes, you're supportive. Yes, you've got our backs. Yes, you're always behind us, giving us that little shove, or you're there holding our hand if we need it. And it's like I lost all confidence in myself as a parent, as a human being, when Charlie was really bad. And you've given that back. You've kind of reinforced everything that I thought, because we do know our kids the best. Yeah. Obviously, there were lots of things I didn't think, but everything I thought, I say to you, oh, do you think? Yes, Katie, I do think that. And you're right. And suddenly somebody is not going, oh, well, you don't know, you're just mum, just be quiet, just stop talking, you don't understand. Somebody was saying, yeah, you are just mum, but you are his mum, and you spend 24/7 with him, and you know what you're doing, and you know what he needs. And that's what it is. I think that's the black magic, I think, is the fact that you listen, you support, you build us up, you give us confidence, you give us faith in our abilities, which then gives our children faith in our abilities too. And one thing that from earlier on when we were talking, and I just thought, you know, the one thing like you were saying about trust with the children, I don't think it's our children want trust. I think our children want acceptance from us.
Yeah.
Our children want to be able to know that we accept them and understand that their needs, and it's accepting their needs. And I think that's a massive thing. I think you kind of help us with that as well.
And I think,
You know, pulling us away from the generic narrative and saying, do you know what, it's okay. It you know your child, you can support your child, and then in turn, Lavinia, you can support us in, you know, building up our confidence again. That's what I think.
Yeah, which actually makes you part of the tag team, Lavinia, which is a
Nice.
because you'll be a tag team member for a number of people, and it's quite difficult with everyone's
That's
needs.
so nice.
But it is part of it. It is part of the fact that, you know, when you start the journey, you are very isolated. You are very on your own, and we've all done it by listening tonight. We've all sought information, we've sourced, and it's just, that's the uniqueness that you bring to the tag team is that acceptance that it's okay. What you're doing is okay. It's fine. It's not the norm. But then what is the norm? Who's got the norm? None of us know that. We'd all be very rich if we knew what that was. But yeah, I think that's the tag team is a three-way tag team. I think that's quite important.
It's four. I include John in mine.
Yeah.
But I think it's about teamwork, isn't it? Lavinia's
It
always
is so
said,
about teamwork.
Lavinia always says we're a team, and like we've discussed tonight about us as a couple being a tag team, you know, you're right. Lavinia is part of that tag team. It's teamwork, whereas I think with a lot of other professionals, it's not teamwork.
Yeah,
it's not. You're just the parents and they're the experts. Whereas with Lavinia, she's kind of.
Well, I see the main difference is that other experts, other professionals direct, where Lavinia encourages and affirms. So, you know, the others just say, right, this is what you're going to do. This is the direction you're going to go in. This is how it should look. And, you know, the point was made right earlier on in the conversation. You come back home and you go, how's that going to work? I'm not going to, I can't implement that. The reaction's going to be awful. Whereas with Lavinia, it's, well, what do you think? What do you think the direction is? Yeah, I think that. I agree. I think that's the right direction. So you get the affirmation, you get the confidence, you get a clear picture that is your picture, not someone directing you to do something. That for me is the major difference. Where, you know, that's the black magic.
With us and school, though, I think that was one thing that Lavinia did as well. Was she made school part of our team?
Yeah.
And Ellis, you know, he will now say we're all on the same team, aren't we? And he knows it's Lavinia and us and school, and we're all on the same team, and him. And that's really changed his school life.
That is black magic, getting a school on board.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, yeah, she's worked absolute wonders, Lavinia. But I can categorically say they are now fundamental in Ellis's success as well. But it's only because they've learned so much through the work that.
I think that there's some really, really lovely points in all of this. Do you feel that you have all grown in confidence and being more assertive?
Yeah,
Absolutely. And you've supported us to believe in ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
because
I say to you, I've got a mouth, I know how to use it, and I do use it, but quite often I was shot down quite a lot. But you gave me back the confidence to be able to say, no, I'm right. This is my child.
Yeah.
I know what he does or doesn't need. And I think that's, so it is about building confidence and giving, I don't know, it's almost sometimes like finding a strength that you didn't know you had within you.
Yeah. But also helping to define our own strategies to help to help others through that same kind of education, be that the child or be that the school or be that family or whatever it is. You know, some of the confidence comes from knowing that we've got strategies in our back pocket that we can use with those others.
And I also think,
go on.
I've lost my train of thought now.
Go on,
sorry.
I was just going to say, with the strategies that you've been learning, in effect, they are now oozing out of your pores, and your children are absorbing the same. So part of the success you're seeing is the fact that your children are mimicking how you deal with things and are so much more relaxed with it, that it opens the floor up for further discussion. And although sometimes the sentences may be meh to maybe or yeah, no, even those short words, your understanding has grown so much, but so too has your children, and because of that, you're all flourishing. And that's the success that I see, you know, and particularly as I go to 2 weekly or maybe monthly, or it may even be 3 monthly, 6 monthly, all the time I'm showing that you are doing it in a way that for a lot of professionals, they probably can't get their head around, because sometimes being a professional seems like you've got to fulfill these tick box exercises you've got to do in a particular way. And if there's one thing I have learned with children, whether they're autistic or not, is there's no set child how they should behave. You know, that's not how it works. And yet we insist that we've got to have school boundaries, we've got to have a set way of doing things, you've got to fit in society with the expectations, you know, and you can go so deep into all how this is, but fundamentally, you did not give birth to a child with those expectations in mind. You gave birth to a child thinking, I want my child to be healthy and happy. And mental health is given such a low level of understanding. And it's that's absolutely pivotal. And you know that, your children now know that, you know, their mental health is so important. And by having these communications, these open discussions, and this lovely fluidity where you can be so much more relaxed without putting the pressure in, suddenly everybody's mental health is coming back up. And that's what gets me out of bed every day.
Do you ever wonder, Lavinia, or do you ever ask the question whereby, as a parent, in the situation that we've all been through over the number of years, if now, as a parent, you went back into that first meeting with the teacher, knowing what you know now, how would you face that meeting now? But I remember that for us as parents. I remember that first meeting. I remember being sat down in a classroom on a very small chair, made to feel about this big, and well, this is what's wrong. This is, you know, and we sat there quietly, and we knew something wasn't right. Couldn't put a finger on it. So we lacked information, we lacked knowledge, we lacked confidence at that point. I'd like to go back to that meeting with that teacher. I really would. Really sad that I can't even remember her name. I don't want to remember her name because it was really, but I'd love to go back to that meeting now, knowing and been through everything we've been through, how I'd approach that meeting so much differently. Because, you know, and that's the thing, you're made to feel really quite, what's the word I'm looking for? You're made to feel wrong. You're your child's wrong, doesn't fit this situation, and you need to sort your child out, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. And you're made to feel, and I know experiences, Louise said, you know, school's been great, but if you go back to that first meeting where it all started to break down, and you are made to feel this great, how would you answer those questions? How would you face that now? And I think I'd be there, I'd be challenging, I'd be going, well, actually, no, the problem isn't my problem, the problem is your problem. I'm not an educator. I'm not the one that can't meet his need. You are.
In
I certainly left it into
hindsight, the
HCP.
go on, sorry, Louise.
I wouldn't have left it until year 5 to apply for an EHCP, that's for sure.
Yeah, in hindsight, and hindsight's amazing, right? But it's you know, those first meetings would have concluded probably with one of us saying, well, actually, mental health and mental health and enjoying life is more important than education.
Yeah, that's the big learning one, isn't it?
So, you know, if you can't find the right balance that helps mental health and enjoying life whilst our child's receiving an education, well, actually, I'll trade education for the others. See you later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What I always find amazing is, and you see this quite a lot written and said, but if a child was in school and refusing to go home, scared to go home, distressed to go home, you'd have social services on your back at the drop of a hat. But when your child is scared to go to school, can't cope with school, you still have social services on your back, but you have them for a different reason. You know, they still think you're the problem. If your child didn't want to come home, you're the problem. Your child doesn't want to go to school, you're the problem. No, do you think I want my child at home 24? So I said this to one of them once. I said, do you think I want him at home 24/7? I said, do you think I'm keeping him at home for me? I said, I'm not. I'm keeping him at home because he cannot. I mean, some days he couldn't even function. It was like he can't even say good morning to me because he's that mentally unwell, and you're just, well, you know, it's just. And we did have comments when Charlie, you know, had his medical issues. Oh, now he's actually ill. No, he's not actually ill. You know, we had people kind of rallying around, and you think, no, hang on a minute. What about the 3 years previous where he didn't leave the house for 3 years and I was stuck at home with him constantly? Steve was in the office. You know, we were at home all the time, 24/7. Nobody offered to go and get me a pint of milk then. But now he's actually ill. You know, and that's the whole thing, I think, with mental health. There is still a stigma, and there is still a massive misunderstanding about it. You know, I mean, we talk about tag team, you know, every parent tag teams, right? I mean, it's a standard thing, every parent tag teams. But I think when you've got a child with any kind of additional needs, and especially mental health needs, it's a very different kind of tag team. You have to be different. You have to, you know, it's not necessarily about playing to each other's strengths. You know, oh, I want to take him down the park, kick a football. You're better at that than I am. Oh, he wants to bake, you know, bake a cake. You're better than that than I am. It's not about that when it comes to tag team and a child with mental health issues. Your strengths go out the window, your weaknesses go out the window, and actually for a long time you do just survive. And it's the tag teaming surviving. It's not about, like I say, it's not about playing to your strengths. It's not about doing what you want to do or what you don't want to do. You have to tag team to survive. And then once you get past that, you tag team because it works.
So you the way I put it is, you know, the tag teaming to survive is you lose your strengths, but you protect your weaknesses. So you're both supporting each other through the really hard times until you get to such a point where the normality, the new normal exists, and there's a rhythm to it. and then it's about checking in, and then it's about all of the focus naturally goes to the child, where at least some of the focus needs to be to each other, and that's the important part of tag teaming for me.
So if there's one thing that you want others to kind of consider as we bring this to a close, and I'm going to have you all back again, because this has been so amazing to have so many different thoughts and feelings and perspectives, but if there was one thing that we could close on, what would you think is the most important advice or thing that you've learned, whatever it is? What is the one thing that you each feel this is really important for parents out there who might be watching this thinking, what do I need to take away from this today?
You know your child the best, and trust yourself that that's the case.
Nice, thank you. Katie, what about you?
Oh no, you put me on the spot.
Come back to you.
No, I agree with the fact you know your child the best, but actually, do you know the biggest thing that I would say is look after, from a total self. Actually, it's not selfish. Look after yourself, even if that's getting up. I used to get up at 5 o'clock because I could get up before Charlie was up, and I could have half hour with a cup of tea before the day started. And that that's important. You need to look after yourself. But the one other thing I would say is you've got strength when you don't think you have.
Yeah, good point.
It's always there.
No, lovely. I like that. Thank you. Louise?
I think for me, I'm not sure what Mike's would be, but I think for me it's find that fire in your belly with questions in meetings, because I certainly spent far too long taking what I was being told as gospel and actually not listening to us. Yeah, I'm looking as if Mike's me, but find that. Yeah, and don't feel embarrassed about advocating child, because I definitely did to begin with.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for that. Come on then.
Well, I've got another analogy. So that we had the one of that Katie said about if you'd have social services on your back if your child didn't want to go home. I've got another one where if you choose a job that you find fulfilling in an environment that you can work in and that makes you feel good. If it didn't work and you weren't comfortable in that environment and it was too noisy and you couldn't work with your colleagues because they were too noisy and they were too demanding and they were not you weren't feeling comfortable in that work, you would change your job. And you'd find a job that you feel comfortable in, you can achieve in an environment that suits you, that's quiet, that you can concentrate in, that you can get up and have a walk around when you want to, because then you can go back to your desk and concentrate a bit more. You change your job. And that's
nice. Yeah, no, that's lovely. Thank you. Come on then, Neil.
Well, I think it's all been said, but yeah, I mean, it has always been for me with Seb is I've learned to listen. I've learned to stop and think about what it is I'm trying to do. And there's no problem in that. I might not have the right answer at the right time, but at least I've contemplated what I'm trying to achieve and trying to make happen. And if it doesn't work, then don't beat yourself up over it, because there's no point. But just have a walk away, have a rethink, go back, chat it through with the tag team. Don't be frightened of asking a question. Don't be frightened of asking those people that are in a similar situation, and just be open, because the one thing that Seb is open. He's always open with me. there are times where he's very brutal, as you know, and just accept it for what it is. The question's there. He's raised the issue. Don't take it personally. Just rethink, recheck, check with whoever, because you just got to find a way. And that they are so uniquely brilliant. And the neurodiverse, I love the neurodiverse word, makes them so uniquely brilliant that we can't help but learn from them, because they are brilliant. And you just have to accept, once you got your head around that, which takes forever, and I'm still learning it, it is such a special place to have somebody who's neurodiverse in your world.
Nice.
And just embrace, because actually, for all the downs, the ups are worth far more than the downs.
So I'm very grateful to you all. Thank you so much. To all of you who've been kindly listening and watching, if you have any questions, if there's anything that you would like to explore a bit further with either myself or the lovely John, as obviously somebody's a big fan of John. Somebody. You're very welcome to contact us at the M Word. And of course, we'd love to hear from you. If we think we can help you, we'd be delighted to. My thanks again, and I will bring this to a close.